Episodes of Palette Swap are suggested by viewers like you. If there's a character you'd like me to analyze, let me know in the comment section down below. Good morrow everyone, Silvershire here, and welcome back to Palette Swap, where I rank the costumes and character designs of your favorite fighting games. And by your favorite fighting games, I mean my favorite fighting games, and by my favorite fighting games, I mean Tekken. Today, we're looking at Heihachi's most mentally stable son, which isn't saying a lot, Lee Chaolan. But before we begin our analysis, here's a quick refresher course on who Lee is and what we should be looking for in his character designs. Lee was a street fighting orphan, who was adopted by billionaire jerkbag Heihachi Mishima so that his son Kazuya could have a training partner, which is one of many plot points that no longer make sense because of Tekken 7's stupid retcons. Like anyone who has to spend time with the Mishimas, Lee came to despise them, so when he learned they would be participating in the King of Iron Fist tournament, he entered for a chance to claim his vengeance. And he got his butt kicked. But then, a couple years later, there was another King of Iron Fist tournament, and he got a second chance to claim his vengeance. And he got his butt kicked again. It's at this point that Lee made the only smart decision a member of Heihachi's family has ever made and went, "You know what, forget it, you guys have fun with your endless cycles of violence, I'm moving to the Bahamas." There, he founded a robotics company called Violet Systems, and became even more filthy rich than he was as Heihachi's son. Once World War III started, long story there, he used Violet Systems' resources to supply the Mishima's enemies with equipment and intel. They say living well is the best revenge, and if that's the case, it seems Lee got his vengeance after all. Lee's Tekken 1 1P is pretty forgettable. The only real points of interest are his black and silver belted gloves, which give him a bit of an edgy bad boy vibe, at least as edgy as you can be while wearing a plasticky purple vest. His dark clothes and light hair are a contrast to his adoptive brother's light clothes and dark hair, which may be a visual signifier of their rivalry, but other than that, there's not much to comment on. There's no influence from either his Chinese heritage or his Japanese upbringing, there's no sign of his refined taste, and there are no unique symbols to call his own. 4 out of 10. His 2P is a black and white tuxedo with the same gloves as his 1P. This was before Kazuya, Heihachi, or anyone else had suits as costumes, so at the time, fighting in formal wear was unique to Lee. It's nothing special, but gives us a sense of his wealth and his debonair personality. The rose on his lapel is a nice touch. 6 out of 10. His Tekken 2 1P manages to be even more boring than the previous game by simplifying his gloves and replacing his vest with a plain sleeveless shirt. He looks like some generic enemy you'd fight in a beat-em-up. 3 out of 10. His 2P is the polar opposite of his previous 2P, leaning into his history as a street fighter. His boots and gloves are the same as his 1P, but instead of a sleeveless shirt, he's wearing a chain necklace and a black leather vest with a white unicorn on the back. Unicorns are associated with, among other things, beauty and grace, which are apt descriptions of Lee's fighting style. It makes for an interesting contrast to the rest of the design, which is focused on looking tough and aggressive. He has a monochromatic color scheme with little value contrast, but I don't mind because it makes sense for this sort of outfit. I don't love this costume, in fact I wouldn't even say I like it, but at least it's trying to be distinct. 5 out of 10. Lee retains his Tekken 2 1P in Tekken Tag Tournament. Since I don't take graphics into account, the same score applies. His alternate costumes are nearly identical to his old 2Ps, but they each have a new pair of gloves, presumably to differentiate them from his 1P. His 2P has black fingerless gloves, which fit the bikerish aesthetic but aren't as unique. They don't change my opinion of the costume overall. 5 out of 10. His 3P has plain black gloves, which likewise fit the fancy aesthetic but aren't as unique. These, I think, are a detriment to the design, because they turn it into an ordinary tuxedo. Still looks alright, but there's nothing to tell you it belongs to Lee. Plus, it now has to compete with more interesting suits like Kazuya's. 5 out of 10. Tekken 4 is when Lee transforms into the character we know him as today. His 1P gives him a glittery ruffled shirt with an indigo and cyan gradient that ensures he's the center of attention. He also has some form-fitting leather pants that seem like they'd be incredibly uncomfortable to fight in. I say that mainly as a joke, but it is worth noting that this isn't a very battle-ready outfit. Sure, he has fingerless gloves and steel-toed shoes, but he's prioritizing fashion, which speaks to his character development. At this point in the story, he's given up on revenge and founded Violet Systems. So he's a genius billionaire playboy first and a fighter second. Lee has more personality here than in all of his previous costumes combined. 8 out of 10. His 2P is a pinstripe suit. It's not as ostentatious as his 1P, but it still looks fancy and expensive. He's back to wearing a purple shirt, though it's a lighter, almost lavender tone, which gives him a sense of refined elegance. His vest, pants, and shoes, meanwhile, are bright white, which serves a dual function of contrasting Kazuya's dark gray 2P and indicating his luxurious lifestyle, so he doesn't have to worry about getting dirty. I would have liked to see some more signs of his wealth, though. Maybe he could have some expensive gold jewelry on his wrists since they're bare at the moment. 7 out of 10. Tekken 4 also introduced a new character by the name of Violet, who looks, sounds, and fights a lot like Lee. It's too bad they're never in the same place at the same time, because I feel like they would get along great. They even have a similar fashion sense, as Violet's costumes are both palette swaps of Lee's. His 1P is purple and magenta, which is really eye-catching. I appreciate how much variety they squeezed out of so few colors, as his hair, shirt, and pants are all different shades of purple. In general, I prefer Violet's design to Lee's because it's more extreme. It takes the flash and flamboyance he's known for and cranks them up to 11. Plus, he's wearing sunglasses, which is automatic bonus points. 9 out of 10. His 2P isn't nearly as distinct from Lee's. Changes the purple to a slightly different purple and the white to a very light pink, both of which are difficult to notice at a glance. Doesn't look bad, but it's an underwhelming palette swap. I would have liked something more unique. 7 out of 10. Lee's Tekken 5 1P combines elements of several previous designs. Most obviously, he has a purple vest like his Tekken 1 1P, but he also has the gloves of his Tekken 2 1P, the necklace of his Tekken 2 2P, and the pants and shoes of his Tekken 4 1P. The unicorn motif is returned, but instead of a full-body silhouette, it's a multicolored stylized head. One of this costume's subtler yet more significant changes is to his hair, which is longer and slightly wavy, adding to his suave look. I prefer his fancier outfits, but this is a great update to the classic version of Lee. 7 out of 10. His 2P is his classic tuxedo. It's unchanged aside from his hair, so the same score applies. His 3P is another take on the black leather and denim look, now leaning more into the biker angle. He has a long sleeve jacket instead of a vest, which sets it apart from his 1P as well as his old 2P. Instead of a unicorn on his back, there's a rose, possibly referencing his tuxedo. His jeans are very baggy around the thighs, resembling the jodhpurs worn by equestrians, and they're a more saturated blue than his old 2P, giving him a little more variety in his palette. 6 out of 10. All of Dark Resurrection's costumes are palette swaps of the Tekken 5 costumes, but you'd be forgiven for not realizing Lee's 1P is any different. His vest is more of a magenta, and his pants are dark purple instead of brown. This is even more underwhelming than Violet's 2P, at least he had sunglasses and a different hair color. 6 out of 10. His 2P is burgundy, which helps it stand out from the other suits and pairs well with the bright red rose. 6 out of 10. His Tag Tournament 2 2P is a casual look that vaguely taps into the goth or heavy metal aesthetic. There's a skull and crossbones on his chest, but it's so tiny and so dark that you'll never notice it during actual gameplay. 4 out of 10. After being absent from Tekkens 5 and 6, Violet returns in this game. His 1P is a very minor update to his Tekken 4 1P that adjusts his hairstyle and gloves to match those of Lee's modern iterations. I do think these are improvements, but not enough to increase the score. 9 out of 10. His 2P is similar to Lee's, but with brighter colors and a camo pattern. In place of the skull and crossbones is this thing, which the Tekken Wiki says is a wizard, so I'll just have to take their word for it. At least it's easier to see since it's not against a black background, but I still don't get why it's so small. 4 out of 10. Lee's Tekken 7 1P goes all in on making him look like a fancy rich dude. It's similar to Kazuya's 1P, but instead of being dark with a rough snakeskin texture, it's colorful with an ornate floral pattern, which communicates the difference in their personalities well. Speaking of that pattern, it transitions into a unicorn on his back, maintaining the theme from Tekken 6. There are tons of small details like his gold watch and the decorations on his shoes that indicate this is an expensive and likely custom-made outfit. The color palette isn't as loud as his Tekken 4 1P, but it still clearly communicates his high class. 9 out of 10. Violet is back to being a palette swap, which might be disappointing if this outfit wasn't so perfect for him. Rather than just changing all the blue to purple, it actually switches up the color placement. For example, Lee has a white shirt and a colored tie, while Violet has a colored shirt and a white tie. His palette is less varied than Lee's, as he doesn't have an accent color, but that's offset by the bonus points he gets for wearing sunglasses. 9 out of 10. Lee and Violet both have an alternate color, which is kind of odd since Violet is an alternate color, but I'm not going to complain about having more options. Lee's is red, black, and white. I'm usually partial to red costumes, and this is no exception, though I have to admit that darker tones and subtler pattern aren't a great match for someone as flashy as Lee. 9 out of 10. Violet's is cream, red, and black, and I don't think it's nearly as successful. It's the only Violet costume without any purple, so his hair seems out of place, and something about the black on cream pattern is just unappealing. I wish I could better articulate why it doesn't work for me, because on paper it seems like a perfectly fine color palette. Maybe this code is just suited, pun intended, for more vibrant hues like blue, purple, and red. 7 out of 10. Before we wrap things up, I want to talk a bit about my hopes for Lee in Tekken 8. I think there's a big missed opportunity across all his costumes to somehow incorporate the fact that he's a roboticist. I wouldn't want him to have a mech suit or anything like that, but a few high-tech gadgets and gizmos would be neat. One of Violet's unique customization options in Tag Tournament 2 was the so-called handheld computer, which was actually more of a wrist-mounted computer. I always thought that would be a cool addition to his regular design. In fact, since Tekken 8 seems to be giving everyone some sort of gimmick or unique mechanic, maybe he could use it to summon robotic drones to aid him in battle. And with that, we have ranked every single Lee costume. He definitely had one of the biggest glow-ups in the series. Between Tag Tournament and Tekken 4, he went from looking painfully generic to looking excellent. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Well, that's just my opinion, so what do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below if you agree or disagree with any of my rankings. Also, let me know which character you'd like to see next. For episode 25, we'll be discussing 2 Soulcalibur characters, Setsuka as requested by Unknown29 and Zoslamau as requested by Season Embrace. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, I bid thee farewell.